Welcome to Dominate Your Day podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to leaders who want to make a difference in the workplace. We believe each person is unique and has a purpose they can live out every day and make an impact in the world. Here at Dominate Your Day podcast, we hear stories from leaders who have used their unique talents to transform themselves and their companies from the inside out.
Welcome to Dominate Your Day. I am thrilled to have with me the coach's coach, Charlotte Blair. She has been somebody that's been popping in my feed for a long time as I have been active with Gallup and CliftonStrenghts. And she's one of those people that you see her out there helping coaches all the time. And you're like, I need to know this Charlotte. I need to get to know her and figure out what's behind her. And Charlotte just launched a new book called Career Unstuck. So welcome to the show, Charlotte. We're glad to have you today.
Thank you, Dana. And I love the title of the podcast, Dominate Your Day. And I think back to my book, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's about dominating every day. So thank you for asking me.
That's right. Sure. And Charlotte, you are near Melbourne, Australia, right? So
Correct.
There's something about Texans and Australians. I don't know. We have a lot of the same. It's just entrepreneurial spirit. Let's make it happen. I don't know. I just see a lot of connection there between Texans and Australians. So, but you're originally from Are you a Brit originally? Is that what I heard?
Correct. I'm a Brit, moved over here 13 years ago now. So I moved over with Verizon that I was working for in the UK and had the opportunity to transfer with them to Australia, which was pretty amazing. And I got to hang out in Texas a little bit last year after the summit. I drove down with Johnny and got to hang out with her down there. So.
Oh, yeah. What do you think of Texas? Pretty cool.
I thought it was,
state.
Very big state, pretty cool. I would have loved to have had more time to spend and sort of hang out in some of the ranchy areas. Being a retired horse rider, it would have been cool to sort of hang out there. But yeah, it was a pretty huge state, and loved the Spaghetti Junction roadways, and so yeah, it was great.
Oh yeah. People come here to Dallas and they're looking for the cattle and the horses. We're like, you're going to have to go out in the country because we don't have those here.
Correct. Yeah.
But you can go to Fort Worth and see them. But it's one of those things they always want to see, a real cowboy. So welcome. And I want to hear, and I know our guests would love to hear your story. So you worked you had a career run and you were in sales. Is that right? You were doing sales?
Correct. Yeah.
How did you pivot into coaching? What was the spark that said, I'm not in the right place and I think I found something else I want to do? What happened?
The spark was definitely the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People course, when you had to sit down and think about what your mission and purpose was in life. And there was an exercise about what would you want people to say about you at your 80th birthday. And the thought of somebody saying, oh, Charlotte's good fun and sells IT filled me with a bit of dread. I didn't want to be known as an IT salesperson for the rest of my life. And it got you thinking about, a little bit like Gallup does, what does your best day at work look like? And, what are some of those pivotal moments? What are some of those great moments? And when I thought about it, I shared in the book actually, Dana, one of my favorite, what we call kind of peaks, I talk about peaks and valleys. One of my favorite peaks was when I got to arrange with my wound arranger, I got to arrange a lunch. It was around this time of the Sydney Olympics, and everybody brought a dish of their country of origin in, and we shared it over lunch. And I remember, standing there watching everybody talking and connecting with each other at a very different human level than just the transactional work level, and going, this is so great. And when I thought back a little bit more to some of the other things that I loved doing, it was in particular about helping people. So I loved to be able to help people. And I was at that point where I had moved from the UK to Australia. I liked my job, but I didn't love my job. The person that was running the course at the time, Brian Bailey, he was the person that had introduced me to CliftonStrenghts a number of years before. And I got to discover my strengths, and I thought, yeah, this sounds like me, but I didn't really do too much with it. It wasn't until I went to him and said, Brian, I want to pivot my career. I've explored sales management. I've explored other roles like specialist roles, but I want to do something different that's helping people, but I don't know what it is. And then I think the more I spoke to him, the more I kind of went, I think I want to do what you do. I think I want to facilitate and coach. How do I get to do what you do? And he said, well, Charlotte, you need to go and get your ICF accreditation. You need to go and get some training or experience in facilitation. But I remember him saying to me, Charlotte, don't try and run before you can walk, which is a bit like a red rag to a bull, to an activator. And I was like, well, just watch me. So when I worked at Verizon, they had this amazing thing called the Tuition Assistance Allowance, and each person was given X $1,000 towards additional training that was in pursuit of their career. I couldn't just go and do basket weaving or mechanics. It had to be around my career. So I did. I went and did my ICF certification. Then I did an advanced diploma in facilitation. And then I did the Gallup accredited course. And that enabled me to pivot my career. I would have loved to have stayed where I was and sort of picked up a learning and development type role there. But I had what I refer to in the book, and excuse my language, it's maybe the Australian language, but a shitty boss. I had a bully of a boss, and it was time for me to get away from that situation. And I did. I moved after a 12-year career at the same organization. I moved to a smaller learning and development company. And then I still wasn't able to quite do what I really wanted to do, and that was more coaching, and in particular coaching people around their strengths. So I decided to set up in business with 2 other coaches, and that's where the Strengths Partners was formed. The other 2 partners sort of, one became ill and the other one got tied up in the contract. So it was really me operating on my own. But I look back now and I couldn't imagine doing anything different. I remember my husband saying to me, actually, have you ever thought about starting your own business? And I'm like, no, I'm a corporate beast. I love working for big corporate organizations. Never going to start my own business. And again, 9 years later, I'm here with a couple of businesses now. So yeah, that's my journey.
That's amazing. Yeah. So there are we know there are people right now in corporate that are thinking, I want to do this, but I'm not brave enough, or I don't know how to do it. You probably talked to them. I talked to them. They're like, okay, in maybe 5 years I can do this. So we'll talk a little bit about your strengths, because I want the audience to hear your strengths, which you already mentioned a few of them, but I think it's important to hear your strengths. And then how did you do it? Who did you put around you to help you make that pivot? Because it sounded like you had great support from your husband, and probably a few of your coaches, but how did you, what's in your strengths that what did you lean on to help you make that jump?
Yeah, so I'm activator, woo, command, arranger, positivity, responsibility, communication maximizer, individualization, significance are some of my kind of driving forces. It was definitely the activator that says, well, let's just jump in and see what happens. The positivity goes, well, if it doesn't work, I can always go back to selling IT. There's always a backup plan. I would stack shelves in a supermarket if I had to. There's always going to be a backup plan. So it was really just jumping in, but the woo definitely helped me think about who was in my network. Even when I first was, thinking about moving on from Verizon, I put a note out there to a couple of people on LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm looking for this type of role. Does anybody know of anything? And it was actually Claire DeCartre, who works at Gallup, that said, hey, my husband works at this small learning and development company. They might have something in Melbourne. And it was through my network that I found that role. And then when I was, again, a little bit frustrated when I wasn't able to use strengths in the way that I wanted to there, I remember having a conversation with somebody over lunch and saying, well, I kind of really want to sort of do this, and I think I'm going to set up on my own. And he said, well, we're actually looking for a contract change manager. Do you think you could kind of do that? It's a part-time. And I was like, yep, I can do that. So I kind of picked up that, and I picked up other little bits of contracting work. And then over a period of time, I would arrange meetups around strengths, and then I picked up clients as a result of arranging those meetups. And then the contracting work would fall by the wayside because I would have enough of my own work, but I still contract for people. So for me, it was definitely a case of, I refer in the book to either dip the toe or jump right in. I guess I dipped my toe a little bit in terms of some of that contracting work to go, is this what I want? Is this what I like? But I also just jumped right in to set up my own business, but 100% leveraged people around me, leveraged the network, made the ask. I talk in the book again about advice my mother gave me. 2 things my mother always said is, what's the worst that can happen? Worst that can happen is it doesn't work, I go back to doing what I was going to do. And the other thing she would always say to me is, you don't ask, you don't get. So I would ask people, I would say, hey, do you know of any contracting work in the facilitation space or in the coaching space? Are you looking for coaches? And people say, well, actually, yeah, we've got this coming up. So my advice to anybody that is thinking, yeah, how do I get to do this, is either dip the toe and test it out on the side, or jump right in, but make sure that you've got that support network. You're right, I had my husband there, and we had a bit of money in the bank should we need to draw upon it, but we never did. But I think so often, Dana, I notice that people don't make the ask. They fear making the ask, and it's understanding what is it that you're fearing. And so many people just want to help other people. If I came to you and said, oh, hey, Dana, do you think you could help me with this? Chances are you would say yes, because you're a human being. And as humans, we are hardwired to help other people. It's in our DNA. So, and we get pleasure from being able to help people. So I often wonder why people don't make the ask. You go, well, what's the worst that can happen? Somebody could say no. So yeah, sometimes it's about just putting our brave pants on and asking for help.
Brave pants, I love that. So tell us who the Charlotte was in junior high and high school. And were there pieces of this Charlotte that have come out now that were kind of stuck in that career situation? I mean, we always hear from strengths, right, that you've had these with you your whole life. So what kind of stories do you remember from growing up where you got to make things happen?
I'm not sure that there's...
You're laughing.
Well, I'm laughing because I go, gosh, if I think about Charlotte at school, Charlotte, I've still got lots of my old school reports, and it says Charlotte talks too much. If only Charlotte had the same level of enthusiasm outside the class for, talking with her friends that she did inside the class, she'd do well. I often share with people, I'm learner number 34, input number 33, and intellection 32. I couldn't wait to get to school. I can happily share that funny story about wanting to get to school a little bit later, but I also couldn't wait to leave school. I didn't go to university. I did the University of Life. I'm highly dyslexic. I had lots of labels put on me when I was at school of, well, Charlotte won't amount to much, and maybe you should go into the typing pool, or go and do home economics and go and do cooking or something like that. And I actually left school and went to work with horses. So initially I just sort of went and worked. My passion then was horses. So I worked with horses, and then I actually just picked up a few temping jobs. If I think kind of back now, I've done lots of different jobs, and I've always done something that will earn the money. So whether it be, I've got 3 waitressing jobs as well as working the horses. I'm 3 waitressing jobs, a shop job, and working for horses. I just always would do something, always be busy so that there was money coming in the door to pay my expensive habit of horses. It wasn't until I then started working at Canon, and then, had a temporary job there and got into sales that way. But at school, I'm not sure. I laugh because I'm not sure that there's any linkages. I'm thinking about this. I'm not sure there's any linkages to what I do now. other than I was a talker and somebody that would start stuff and do stuff and was always impatient and in a hurry. So I guess there's linkages there to, I go back to when Brian said, don't run before you can walk. I've always been in a hurry to do things. So yeah.
Well, and it's fun to see that because I can picture the Charlotte in high school and in junior high, probably always having a bunch of friends around her, always having a lot going on. But then that school piece of it is what I'm hearing is like, the dyslexia. Because back then, did you even know you had dyslexia? Was that?
It was very early in that piece where people understood what dyslexia was. And it was as much that my brother's dyslexic as well. So it was as much that he was really struggling. I think I was labeled a little bit. I'm not saying by my parents, but probably by teachers. My brother was much smarter than I was, incredibly intelligent. But there was this kind of like missing piece for him. So they actually took my brother and had him assessed. And they said, well, I think maybe Charlotte's got this as well. Let's get Charlotte assessed. But I probably wasn't assessed until I was about 15, 16, when just before exams. The education system, I think, in the UK is certainly different to the Australian, but I'm not sure about the US. So I was assessed just before exams, which really it just meant that I got a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra accommodation. But I guess had I been diagnosed much earlier, and if it was this day and age, there might have been a much different support system. That said, I've got two boys that are both dyslexic, and they probably face some of the same challenges, but there's a little bit more support mechanism. I'm not sure that it would have changed the direction that I took. I do not regret not going to university. I think I've absolutely done fine through the university of life. But yeah, it was, and I probably dismissed some of the labels a little bit of going, oh well, I'm dyslexic. Now I'm quite kind of proud about it. Not proud. I'm not sure the words.
Yeah.
Proud, but anyway, I'm comfortable with it. Like I disclose it. I don't often do slides. I do flip charts, and if I do flip charts, I say to the participants, I put an F7 up there and go with a spell check. I'm dyslexic. If I spell something wrong, don't worry about it. You feel free to come up and correct it. Or I know people. I think they play with me sometimes. I might be writing something up on the flip chart, and then they give me really complex words to write, and I'm like, that's just cruel. You're being mean now. You're going to have to spell that for me. So I don't mind. Or people will come up and go, oh, it's driving me up the wall that this is spelled incorrectly. I say, hey, just go and change it. That's fine. And I've got in my email signature, I'm made by dyslexia. Expect, curious ideas and curious spelling. So you're thinking about
Yeah, and there's so much, and I heard you talk about this before a little bit, the imposter syndrome, the comparison, just all the things. And a lot of females go through just the confidence factor. You talked about just ask. So there's something in your strengths, and it's probably, did I hear self-assurance in there?
Well, self-assurance is at number 11. So yeah, it's
yeah, there we go.
I would say my top 12 are my dominant ones, futuristic and self-assurance is
Yes.
sort of, 11 and 12. So I think there is a bit of that. And in the sort of Gallup work, when we talk about, the themes that we might envy, I often joke and say, I'm a high self-assurance. I don't envy any because I'm very comfortable with who I am. But yeah, there's a little bit in there that it was just like, well, this is what I am. Sometimes there's comparisonitis. I think everybody gets it at some point. I wouldn't say I necessarily suffer from imposter syndrome. And I write in the book a little bit about that. I think some people do. I don't as much. But when somebody says, oh, what university did you go to? That can make me bristle a little bit, maybe, of going, actually, I didn't go to university. And I wonder whether people judge as a result of that. But yeah, I think that's where I say labels belong on jars, not on people. And we can label people based on whether they did go to university, what university they went to, where they've worked in the past. And I always try and kind of help people go, you are unique, you are who you are, but you can also change things. I haven't let dyslexia define who I am. So.
Well, and I think what I love is you're demystifying all of that. You're demystifying all the things that, you could have a person that has amazing degrees and all kinds of experience, but they're not a people person, or they don't they haven't made the movement that you've made. And so this to me is being your authentic self. And it's a great lesson on building your personal brand, because you're being you, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Any of those things matter. It's what you think and what you believe. And when we get into that, what you think and what you believe, and you were thinking back at that Stephen Covey moment when you were doing your mission and where you want to be, did you kind of create your mission then, or has it been evolving? Do you have a current kind of mission statement legacy that you're living to right now?
I wish I could find the original work that I did there, but it was definitely something around helping other people. And I think, circling back to this piece about, supporting other coaches. I love supporting other coaches because I feel like that's helping people, helping accelerate the strengths movement. If I can help 10 coaches reach 10 other people, that it's also a little bit of the significance. It means that I'm helping make the movement of strengths, move faster and wider than I might be able to on my own, or they might be able to on their own. So there was definitely something in there on the mission statement about, supporting and helping other people. And even in my book, I refer to Marcus Buckingham's Love Plus work. And he talks about this piece of, understanding who it is that you're supporting. Is it important who you work with, how you work with them, when you work with them, what you work with them on? So I think over the last couple of years, I got a little bit clearer about that. Like, I used to work with just anybody. Now I particularly love working with already high-performing teams. How can I help them be better? I don't love virtual facilitation. So there's a leadership program I run, and I contract out for somebody else, and they say, can you do this virtual? I'm like, no, because I don't love virtual facilitation. So I think getting much clearer on what it is that you do want to do and you don't want to do has helped towards fine-tuning that mission purpose, mission statement. Simon Sinek's why, Know Your Why and Start With Why work has helped me as well, to help other people discover and use their strengths and reach their full potential so that they can live their best life, so that they can dominate their day every day. I ask the question in coaching, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love your work? And when people are lower down on that scale, how can we help them love what they do and dominate each day and get closer to a 10 every day?
Charlotte, does it bother you when you're working with somebody and you've asked them that, and then you leave and they're not working with you, and you're thinking about, oh my gosh, is this like, sometimes I was with somebody the other morning and she was in a funk, and I just have been sending her little things every day to kind of encourage her. But it's kind of like when people are in that, they're stuck, as your book says, they're just stuck. Do you feel like, does that weigh on you after you've left them, after you've finished working with them, or do you? Because I know that there's a piece of me that does, and I bet with you, what I'm hearing from you is you want to help people. So does that bother you when they haven't had that light bulb moment yet?
Yes, it bothers me, and it's why I wrote the book, because a lot of people for a few years have said, oh, you should write a book, in particularly around this, as you've been asking me, that transition of career. They go, wow, you shifted from, or you went from not going to university and being dyslexic to, very successful sales roles in IT companies. I spent 7 years selling photocopiers for Canon, or different roles there, and then at Verizon, to then running your own business. Wow, you should write a book about your journey. But actually the catalyst behind it was, in particularly during COVID, I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching and asking that question on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you love your job. And when I hear the 3s and the 4s and the 5s and the reasons why, it's why I wrote the book. I wanted to be able to give people tools and resources to help them get unstuck from that and shift and move forward towards the 10. And it's the activator in me. It's the responsibility in me. It's a little bit of the command. I want to be able to kind of, gently push and nudge and encourage and support and help and hold people's hands on the journey to get unstuck. But I think the key is understanding why you're stuck first. You got to kind of understand why you're stuck and what's keeping you stuck. And some of that, yes, is mindsets, and some of that is imposter syndrome and the beliefs that we have. And once we understand that, or it might be a money thing, it might be, I've got to do this because I've got to pay the mortgage. But there are still choices and options and things that they can do and get the support crew and make the ask. So yes, it does bother me. Does it bother me for a long time? There are certain people who still pop up in my brain, and I wonder now. I go, God, gee, I wonder, are they still stuck? But I think I can't force people to get unstuck. I can help them, but I can't. Right. I can't force them. Sometimes I want to just leave and do something different. But not everybody's like me. Not everybody has the same talent themes as I do. So it's helping them understand which of their strengths are maybe keeping them stuck, and which of their strengths could they lean upon to be able to get unstuck. That's the bit that if somebody goes, I took action as a result of what you're coaching, Charlotte, or your book, that's a win for me.
So Charlotte, tell me one of your favorite experiences, either using Career Unstuck or before you wrote the book, where you got to see transformation in one of your clients or one of your leaders or one of the people you were working with. It might be a story from your book, but I think people love to hear those stories. And I think you brought up something really important, that you can't really, the person has to decide they want to change. You can't make them change. So I see this book as a great piece of work to put in the hands of somebody who says, I want to make a change and I don't know where to go. And like, here, go through this and check in with me. So is there a story of somebody that has used the method you have in here, or that you've gotten to coach that you want to share? You don't have to share names, but somebody that you've seen a transformation with.
Yeah, I think there's I think it's early doors for the book in terms of, somebody saying, wow, yes, I've already shifted my career as a result of this. Certainly I'm certain to hear, like there was somebody who was a participant in a workshop with me a number of years ago, really great leader, and she got the book. And she sent me a note recently and said, oh, do you know of anybody that works in the change leadership space or change management space? And I was like, I love that she has made the ask. I love that she is leveraging her network now and making the ask. So she said, oh yeah, I kind of picked up from your book. So I helped make the ask and stuck something on LinkedIn and said, does anybody know of anybody that's got contacts in this space, and connected her with people. So that's a little recent story. The aim of the book is what,
that's great.
Much it is. The aim of the book is as much about giving people different tools. So for some people, discovering their strengths will be perhaps the pivotal or catalyst for them. For other people, understanding their non-negotiables and their values will be useful. For other people, thinking about that three-legged stool. For other people, knowing their why. So I wanted to give a myriad of tools that might help different people depending on where they are in their journey. But one of the stories that I shared in the book was when I worked at a consulting firm. There was somebody there who and this is a little bit like this kind of job crafting piece. There was somebody who I remember in a team meeting sharing, I didn't love the peer review process. Being dyslexic, I'm not great about the peer review process. I'm not very good at picking up my own mistakes, let alone somebody else's mistakes. And she heard this and said, oh, I love the peer review process. Give me the peer review process stuff. And there was somebody else in the team that said, oh my God, I hate doing the induction. I'm not great at meeting new people. I hate doing the induction program. I go, oh, I love doing the induction. I love meeting new people. I'm a woo. Give me that. So as a team, we job crafted a little bit so that we got to play to our strengths. And there was one person in the team who has since left that organization. She also, after I left, she had a little bit of a a kind of a challenging boss situation, and it knocked her confidence, and she didn't feel valued or appreciated, and people weren't being managers and were not playing to her strengths in the way that they were previously. And she's now a recruiter. So she thought about, what does she really love doing? She's a great woo, she's a great empathy, she's a really good connector. And she kind of shifted from this sort of finance side. She'd been in the organization 30 years, and she shifted to be a recruiter. And now she loves her work every single day. And I just think that's really lovely. Now, I'm not saying that that was a result of my coaching, but certainly introducing strengths. And she went on to become a Gallup accredited strengths coach as well. So I love that she kind of not only took strengths as a result of me bringing it into the organization, but she took it and then went on to become accredited, got to understand herself, and shifted her career. But I think there's lots of different stories over the years of people kind of making some sort of shift. I think my most frustrating ones are when somebody doesn't. They complain that they don't love their work. They're a 3 out of 10, and you talk to them 18 months later and they're still in the same space. And I'd love to be able to just help them make that shift. And for some people, it's different times.
Yeah, and you might be the 5th person that's talked to them and they're still not ready, and then somebody else comes along after they've gotten all your material and they're ready now. So I think it's interesting to watch. And I love how you have this desire to really help people. So with your futuristic cast a vision, where do you see this book going a year from now, 2 years from now?
2 years from now. It's funny, I'm futuristic, but I often go, I struggle to look beyond 6 months. But two years from now is interesting. Yeah, well, no, I kind of feel like it helps push me outside of my normal 6-month frame. But what I remember hearing, I was part of a book writing group. I'm part of Kelly Irvin here in Australia is the most amazing book writing coach. I believe everybody, well, you know this, everybody needs a coach. And she is a book writing coach. I don't think this book would be out here if I didn't have her and part of the expert author community. And I remember a number of people sharing the statistic that you're more likely to sell more books in the second year than the first year of the book, because there's that kind of momentum. So for me, 2 years' time is that this book is still being talked about, still, getting into the hands of people that are stuck. There may well be updates to the book. Some of the research in there is latest research, in particular like Gallup's research of the state of the global workforce. There are references obviously to the pandemic. We don't know what the future looks like with that, but I think what will remain is that there will be people stuck in their career. What I noticed in particular is the pandemic has had people reevaluate their working situations. When we think about the Great Resignation. There's a lot of people that made the shift, and there's still a lot of people that haven't made the shift. There are still organizations that are insisting that people come back into the office, and that might not be the freedom and purpose that people are looking for. So I think people are reevaluating, and I don't think that's going to be a one-time thing. I think in 2 years' time, people will still be. So the more people that can get this book in their hand to help them get unstuck, or even if it's just helping shift that number. If they're a 6 out of 10 and they move towards a 7 out of 10 in terms of how much do you love your work, the higher up we can go. Do I love my work every single day? No. I love that my teenage boys, Harrison's 20, pretty much every day he says, "How was your day, Mum? What have you been working on?" And I'll tell him, and he goes, "Oh, you love working with that client, don't you?" And I say, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, what would you give your day out of 10 today?" And I'd be like, 7. And he goes, "Oh, okay." Might even ask that question I ask sometimes, what needs to happen to move it from a 7 to a 10? So not every day do I get to be a 10, but it's a lot more than when I was working in the kind of corporate 9 to 5, because I have the freedom, because I have a clear purpose of I want to be able to help people, and it's a driving force for me. So I think in 2 years' time, it's it's accelerating, it's keeping going, it's the train that's moving, and it's getting into the right people's hands. So I guess my message to anybody who either is stuck, I would love you to read the book. If you know somebody who is stuck, please buy the book for them for Christmas. If you are a coach that works with people that are stuck, you might find it useful in your work. And there's a workbook that goes along with it, and at the end of each chapter there are questions to be able to kind of help ask yourself or ask other people. There's all those kind of coaching questions in there. There's additional reading. So that was a long answer to a short question.
This is great,
Dana.
No, no, it's really good. So it looks like you've got a QR code at the back that they can scan. Is that how they get the more information, more resources?
Correct. Yeah,
That's
the QR
great.
code will take them to a workbook that they can download, and because I had some test readers and they said, I love this. It's like a workbook in a book, but I would love to be able to kind of think about some of these questions again. So I developed the workbook so that they could time and time, regardless of where you are, when you're stuck, it might be, I kind of need to fill out some of these things and make some notes and refer back to it. And there's lots of coaching questions in there.
So do you have a community that you're putting people in that are doing the book right now? I know it's hard for you if they're buying on Amazon to know who's bought the book, right? Unless they
Correct.
do the QR code and order the workbook. Is that so? How are you putting these people together to get in community as they're reading it? Or because I know you're a big wooer, so I'm just curious how that's coming, how you've put all that together.
Yeah. So that is work in progress. So at the moment, I have just sort of issued out a date that's aimed at coaches to be in a pilot group to go, how might you be able to use this with your clients? And then probably early next year, Australia tends to sort of shut down for Christmas and January. But early next year, I plan on having some open programs where anybody that is stuck in their career can kind of come along and attend a workshop. And then I want to be able to help provide some of those resources. There's going to be a slide deck as well for other coaches to be able to use, so that there are workshops. Because I think knowing that you're stuck yourself is one thing. Having a cohort of other people that may be in a similar space and can kind of champion each other, I think will be good. I think the interesting thing as well, Dana, I would love to be able to take this into corporates, but I'm not sure how many people are going to willingly admit within a corporate environment that they feel stuck in their career. There are not everybody's courageous enough to kind of admit that. I recommend that people have the conversation with their manager about their strengths, or if there's something that they're unhappy with, or how might they job craft. But I don't know that I can go into a corporate and say, hey, I'm running a workshop on getting unstuck from your career. I think I'd like to do a workshop that's aimed at leaders and managers. That is, how can you play to your people's strengths so that they don't get stuck in their career, and you can help them, live their best life at work. But I think the program for individuals stuck, I think, will be separate. And I want to build, a community of other coaches that can be running these workshops themselves, adding their own flavor to it, adding their own, sort of strengths materials to it as well. That if we can all just sort of help people love work more, then it's a good thing.
Absolutely. And I think I can think of some of my clients now that have people reporting to them that probably aren't in the right spot, and to have them read something like that and go through some of the exercises and see, how they can help themselves get to that next level. And it could be within the corporation they're in right now. They're just in the wrong spot. Correct. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for you. So I cast the vision that probably in 2 years, you've got plenty of coaching groups going and coaches leading it, and opportunities with leaders to share it with their direct reports who are kind of stuck. But yeah, I cannot wait. So Charlotte, as we get ready to close out, is there anything about the book that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share? Anything about how to use the book that maybe or questions that you're getting right now? You're just in early launch. I mean, you only launched 4 weeks ago?
Correct. Yep.
So you're in an early launch period. So I can't wait to have you back to the show in a year and see how things are going. But right now, is there anything, a common question you're getting about the book or about how to use it that you want to share?
I don't think there's a common question yet. I think the common feedback that I'm getting is how practical it is. And that was my
Right.
aim. So it is about
Right.
going on a journey. I want people to know that I am there on the journey with them, holding their hand metaphorically. I think what I would really love is to hear more, I guess, in line with the question that you asked earlier, what are those stories? I would love to hear, and this is probably coming from my significance of, if somebody has read the book and they have found it useful and they have taken action, let me know. I mean, I do put that towards the back of the book of say, I'm here to support you in any way I can. Please let me know if you found it useful. But what I'm hearing so far is it is really easy to read. It's practical. People that know me say, wow, it's so in your voice. It's so, I guess, kind of plain speaking. But I wanted it to be really practical. And I wanted it to be a bit like going on a journey where you might stop, you might, head off on a path, you might stop and sit down and, watch the view or have a chat with somebody. You might take a detour off. You might kind of, go off on that path, but come in on another path. And it's not a book that you necessarily have to read from cover to cover. You could look at it and say, yeah, actually, I think I kind of need to think about who could be in my cheer squad. And you might just want to read the bit on, mentorship. You might decide that actually you need to reread the bit on willing to fail or willing to try and fail. You might want to read the bit about dip the toe and jump right in. I've tried to make each chapter sequential but useful on their own. And again, the coaching questions that go at the back of the book. So at the end of each chapter, there's a summary. There's questions to ask yourself, and there's a little kind of action box. What's the action you're going to take? And that's the one thing I'd love people to do is, even if it's just one little thing, what are you going to do? I'm going to reach out to somebody and ask for support. I'm going to test something. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to work through my 3-legged stool scenario. Whatever it is, I'd love to know the action that people are going to take. But I haven't had any questions yet. I would love to come back on in a year's time and have this discussion. Where's futuristic for you, Dana, when you were saying I foresee this?
I'm like number 3.
Okay,
number
all right,
3.
Well, that's like really
so there
exciting.
it is. That's why it is. I've already see it. It's so funny. When I worked with another strengths coach at Southwest, she'd say, Dana, what do you see? Because she had futuristic really low. I said, I see in 3 years when all our leaders are in one room and people from Gallup are here. Sure enough, it happened. And I'm sitting there texting her, it's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's happening because you can just see it.
Yep.
And I see it. And I think that's what's exciting. I think there are so many people, as you know, Charlotte, just from our data from Gallup, is that we know 1 out of 2 people right now are not happy in their job or looking for something else. And this book is a great book that you've put in the hands so easily through Amazon to people who really are trying to figure it out. Why am I not happy first? And if I don't, you got to figure out that why and then get into the root of then what are you going to do about it? So I love that you have action items at the end of each chapter. So how can people get in touch with you? We've already mentioned Amazon has your book. Is there any other resources that you would point them to as we get ready to close out today?
Yep, 2 things I would love people to walk away with and knowing how to contact me. Number 1, LinkedIn. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn, and I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, so anybody can find me on LinkedIn. The second one would be, I've got 3 websites, but the best one to direct them to would be careerunstuck.com.au. On there, they can go to the links to buy the book. It's available, yes, Amazon, Booktopia, Barnes & Noble. People can even go into their local library and request a copy of it. They can go into their local bookstore and request a copy of it. If they're in Australia, I can post them a signed copy out. Doing that from Australia to the US seems to take an awful long time. Probably not the most cost-effective route, but yeah, ordering on Amazon. Yeah. And then if they are a coach that wants to reach out, they will see a link to my other site. If they are a corporate that they would like to reach out, they will see my other site there. So Career Unstuck is probably the best place to direct people to. But I love connecting with people on LinkedIn and leveraging my network and enabling other people to leverage my network. So I would love people to connect with me there. And yeah, please share. If you've read the book and you found it useful, let me know. Yeah. If you've read the book and you've seen an error in it, let me know. I have an editor, that checked it, but you never know. The odd little mistake might sneak in. So let me know.
It's okay.
And if there's something that you see in the workbook,
that's awesome.
I would love to get some feedback on the workbook. Let me know too.
That's awesome. Charlotte, thank you for all you do for coaches, what you're doing to help people get unstuck with your book. I thank you I hope you're taking time to celebrate. So many times we keep moving. And I just hope you're taking time to celebrate this moment in time that you've created this vision and you made it happen. So hopefully over the holidays, you'll get to celebrate. It sounds like your sales are going phenomenal. So congratulations to you on that. And we look forward to talking. I'll have you back in a year and let's see what happened. I want to hear all about it. So
I look forward to it and seeing if some of your predictions come true. I hope they do, but I would be delighted to come back in a year. Thank you for asking me today to come on and share. And I look forward to, will we see you in Omaha as well, Dana?
Yes. Well, we'll be there in Omaha.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Omaha is our annual strength summit every year. So and we got to go in person last year for the first time in 2 years. So that was fun to see everybody. And I think that's the other thing, Charlotte, is you're very intentional. There's not that many people here from Australia that come to the United States, and you're one of those people that make it happen. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for all you do for the coaches. So I really appreciate you. And we'll be following you and can't wait to dive into your book and share it with some of my clients. So
beautiful.
Best to you. And thank you for being here today.
No problem. Thank you, Dana.
You have been listening to Dominate Your Day podcast. If you're ready to transform your life and workplace from the inside out, go to danawilliamsco.com and set up a discovery call. We would love to connect with you and equip you with some helpful resources. Thank you for listening today, and please take a moment to subscribe to Dominate Your Day wherever you listen.